Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Bone. Today we have Jayson DeMarco, Director of Partnerships at Players Health. Players Health is an insurance company for both athletes and professionals. And as I've been working in the profession and scheduling events and doing per diem, I have found out a lot of athletic trainers don't hold their own personal and general liability insurance. As a healthcare provider, this is very important. Employers love to help you and cover you, but when you make a mistake, sometimes they just ditch out and leave you out to dry. So today I wanted to have Jayson on to talk more about the importance of it, what are the different types of insurance, why you need it, what it's protecting you from, all these different aspects that I don't think we really hit on in our education as athletic trainers. So welcome to the show, Jayson.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So since you guys do cover athletes, what did you think of the tooth injury from the U.S. hockey game? And would you guys cover that type of thing?
Yeah. So from an A&H perspective, that would definitely be covered. But it feels like it's a common injury. And most professional hockey players, they have teeth that they're just removing on a like an 80-year-old man dentures type of thing. It seems like it's common practice. It's almost like a badge of honor that you haven't lost a certain tooth. So hats off Jack for finally losing those teeth for the second time.
Exactly. So, well, how about we just start with an overview of Players Health and the mission behind the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So Players Health actually had a really windy road to insurance. We actually started out, we actually celebrated our 10-year anniversary last year, but we didn't start out insurance. The first 5 years of the company was really built on athlete safety. We wanted to get back to the mission. The mission is always core to Players Health, but we wanted to create the safest and most accessible environments for athletes to play the sports that they love. It was a very simple mission, and what the majority of the individuals that currently work for Players Health all bought into, because I have young kids and I'm like, how do I make it better? Like I had the coaches that were like, oh, run it off, rub some dirt on it. And it's like, how do we actually make it safer? So Tyree Burks, our president and CEO and founder of the company, he basically set out and he had his own basically story, played football, was going to go into the NFL, ended up playing in the Canadian Football League, getting injured, riddled with injuries throughout his time playing for the Canadian Rough Riders. And he basically said, and he attributed a lot of those injuries to when he was younger, that like were misdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all. They said, again, run it off, rub some dirt on it. So he created return to play protocols. Basically, if you get injured, how do you get on the court? How do you return back to the court, the ice, the field? And then he branched off into sexual abuse awareness and one-on-one interactions between coaches and athletes. And then he had a really nice suite of products he went out to market. And what I now know coaching a lot of my kids' sports is there's just no money out there. So it's like, while it's a nice to have, it's unachievable with insurance premiums and all that kind of stuff. And I'm the bad insurance person, so I know. But at the end of the day, it's something that's needed. So Players Health basically had this athlete safety thought process in mind. And I'm sure we'll get into kind of like the insurance aspect of it, but we wanted to tie it together and make it free. We wanted to integrate this into the insurance product, but it's changing the minds of our insureds at the end of the day, because it's not an expense. It's something that you need to do. But let's take it a step further and actually start give you credits for the things that you are implementing in athlete safety. So Now we're fully integrated insurance. I run our MGA. We have a full brokerage as well, and we're now a big player in the market. And a lot of that just comes down to our mission and how we actually show up at the end of the day for the athletes. And I consider athletes, whether you're a fitness facility, whether you're an athletic trainer, or whether you're a participant on the field.
Yeah. So basically it rooted from medical insurance or just like accidental insurance for athletes originally?
So originally, we started out as strictly a PNC. So we have general liability, your accident and health, we have property, we have excess. We focused on that first, and then what we found out is that, and in my prior background, just to give you an idea, is I worked for HBSO, so I knew what products were out there for athletic trainers and also medical professionals. And I saw that there were just so many holes. And one of them is, and we'll probably get into there, it's like everybody cares about the professional liability, but nobody's caring about the general liability. So that was something that, as I continue to do our normal PNC, your little leagues and your youth sports, to your fitness facilities, your boutique fitness facilities, your spin, your row, your yoga, to your box gyms, your CrossFits. What I kept on coming across is athletic trainers and individuals saying, like, we need some kind of coverage for this. And I remembered having conversation with especially athletic trainers saying, like, oh, I just have this policy and it's this standard boilerplate policy. But I was like, but what's your exposure? What do you do on a daily basis? And then getting a step further and actually try to go through that process. And then I got teamed up with individuals like Andy and Ellis at Go4. And they said, we have this base of athletic trainers that need insurance. We just need a mechanism or a policy. And I'm like, perfect. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to try to change things up a little bit and actually give them the coverage that they need.
Yeah. So can you talk about the different layers? You talked about professional, then we have general, there's some malpractice, there's all these different pieces. And I guess at the end of the day, why aren't they just all rolled into one coverage?
It under our policy, it is. So professional, It's actually a general liability policy, and professional is included in there. So it's a little bit different than your typical professional liability, because depending on what you do at the end of the day, and I say every athletic trainer is different. Like if you are working for an employer, as you kind of mentioned when you started this off, if you're working for an employer, you think you're kind of covered by them. And for the most part, you are, until you're not. But if you're doing anything on the weekend that's outside of that employer, you have no coverage through that employer. It's moonlighting. So you need your own separate coverage, and understanding what you actually need is really, really important. And it all goes around, like, what are you doing at the end of the day? So professional liability, like malpractice, like however you want to phrase it, terms get thrown about, but it's about the services that you provide as a professional, your evaluation, your treatment decision, your return to play guidance, your rehab recommendation. That's the professional aspect of it. When you're talking about the general liability, this is your bodily injury or your property damage arising out of the operations. Let's say if you have someone trips over your table at an event on a weekend, that's a general liability. That's not a professional liability exposure. And if you only have a professional liability coverage, you're basically paying that out of pocket. So
Gotcha.
it's you just got to understand what your gaps are. And you know what? It's not like our society is getting less litigious at the end of the day. It's getting more litigious. So we just need to make sure that we're adequately covering for the exposure that they have.
Yeah. So I want to get into this later, but it kind of brought up now nicely is, so what you're doing day to day really depends on what type of coverage you need, like, working with professional athletes versus working at the collegiate setting, and then even just now the NIL stuff. Do you have any tips on that? Are there demographics that are covered in the insurance?
I wouldn't say necessarily, like there's different coverages for what they're actually doing. So let's say it depends on what your job is. Like if you're doing side work, like let's say you work for a university and that's your main job, but on the on the weekends, you're picking up side jobs or different gigs and you have private clients. That's not covered under that collegiate policy. So
Yeah.
you need to go outside of that. So if you have private clients or anything like that that you're seeing, like if something happens, and like I said, I always go back to, we live in a very litigious society. If they sue you, that college or collegiate organization is not covering you for what you're doing on the side. So like that
Hmm.
needs to be picked up. And also, if you're working with professional athletes, so like if you say a typical policy is 1 mil occurrence, 3 mil aggregate, or 1, 2, whatever it may be, that may not be sufficient when you're dealing with an athlete that's worth $25 million. Like that, you need to increase that based off of your clientele. Like if you're doing amateur sports, you could probably get away with like a 1, 2, or 1, 3. Like that's fine. But if you're depending on what you're doing in the NIL space or professional space, you need to increase your limits accordingly and just make sure that you're both have the professional and also the general liability.
Yeah. Uh, so I don't know if you know why, but many people do use the crutch of, well, I work for the institution. If anything happens to me while I'm at the institution, they're definitely going to back me up. Why is that kind of a false pretense at the end of the day? Why would a organization kind of pull the rug from under you if something did happen?
And it's not, universities are not just one section that I'm going after, but it's
Yeah.
every employer at the end of the day. They're going to say you set up something that caused bodily injury to somebody else, so it's your fault because you chose to do that. Even though you are employed by us, most universities are when you get sued in a lawsuit, they're going to sue you, they're going to sue the university, they're going to sue anybody that was around. So you're going
Hmm.
to get named in there. However, your interest in that is going to be significantly different than the organization, in this case, colleges or your employer, if
Hmm.
you're working for another organization outside the collegiate space.
Okay.
So having that be able to provide defense on your behalf, not on the university's behalf, it could be paramount, especially if it's something that you leave that university and they're like, this person doesn't work here anymore. You still have a backstop with additional coverage.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you saw that North Carolina has a sexual assault case that's going on right now. And usually the employer kind of wants to not be associated at the
Yeah.
end of the day. It's easier to get rid of one than take down the whole empire. So I think those are the things that athletic trainers forget about at the end of the
Yeah.
day. So that whatever is going to be the easiest to clean up, and usually it's that one person and cutting ties with them and letting them figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we're talking about this and trying to bring to perspective how easy it is to get put in a position, even by your employer.
Yeah, and honestly, it's about the money at the end of the day, and it happens. And I would say for individual athletic trainers, they just need to be aware that you could be best friends with that employer, but at the end of the day, you are just an employee, and they
Hmm.
need to protect the represent or their reputation at the end of the day, and that could be at the detriment of you. So
Yeah.
having that insurance policy and especially that defense on your behalf, speaking about you in particular and not just the university or employer as a whole, is really important.
Yeah. So, from your perspective, what are some of the biggest liability risks athletic trainers face today in the traditional setting, in the per diem, in emerging ones? Um,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
what have you seen so far, and we should be aware of?
Yeah, so I guess there's a lot. There's a lot of this, but all you're gonna say is first one is always like the return to play disagreements. Like an athletic trainer clears a person, they go back into the game, and then subsequently has another injury or subsequently goes down. Like that is like, what was your thought process there? So it's always
Hmm.
the return to play allegations and disagreements are always going to be something that comes up as a claim, especially with athletic trainers. Um, I think the allegations that systems or that symptoms weren't escalated properly. So, like, let's say if a person has an injury to the head, and then you're not understanding, or like that athletic trainer is accused of not understanding the early warning signs of a brain bleed or anything like that. That's something that is always going to be questioned at the end of the day. And then it's just, I hate to say it, it's a bad game of telephone. Miscommunication between the staff, the athlete, the parent, the coach. There's just too many cooks in the kitchen at the end of the day. And I always say, like, the most important thing is to really have an EMR system in place, because then you're actually tracking everything in like semi real time, that you can say, hey, this is what happened. This is what my thought process was at the time based off the information that was in front of me. And that's clear.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody could fight it. It's what was documented at that point in time.
Yeah. I just feel like if you look wrong at somebody, something's going to pop up.
Exactly. And it's sad. Like I said, we live in a very litigious society, but at the end of the day, it's the individuals that are at the lowest peg of that it's the athletic trainer just trying to make money on the weekends, or this is their livelihood. And you basically you took something that was their professional judgment and you just blew it out of proportion just based off the fact that something else happened subsequent to their prognosis.
Yeah. So with that, athletic trainers working with athletes, obviously our departments have like accidental insurance, that secondary insurance. Should we start promoting that our athletes get professional insurance at the same time? I mean, they have their medical insurance, but you have the medical costs covered, but if it's a career-ending injury or something, would you recommend that they start getting that even at the collegiate level, any level of athletics at this point?
Yeah. So one thing that Players Health actually has is critical injury. So right now, it's for the benefit of the college or collective. However, we're actually going out probably in the next couple months, and we'll do it for the benefit of the athletes. Because honestly, it's their well-being, especially with as much money as in the NIL. If that individual, like a Arch Manning, I mean, he should probably stay in college as long as he possibly can. He's making a ton of money as a collegiate athlete. And it's kind of one of those things that so many individuals were given so much money, especially now, that they need to protect their downside, very similar to professional athletes. Like, if you never know what could happen in one given play that has never happened to you before. And we've seen that repeatedly. And from the NIL, considering these contracts are based off of name, image, likeness, not performance based, they have to pay you throughout the year, but they don't have to pay you the next year, because like they're not utilizing your name, image, likeness if you're not playing for them anymore because you sustained a massive injury. So getting that critical illness policy to protect your downside for an athlete, both in the collegiate space and also on a professional space, is definitely something you should do. I mean, think about it. Like, if Aaron Rodgers had an insurance policy for going down 2 seasons ago, that would have been great for him. He had guaranteed contracts, so at least that's great. But the team paid that out, and they didn't have insurance to back it up.
Yeah. So talking about like accidental insurance, athletic trainers like to try to utilize ROIs when they're trying to articulate their value. And I've heard that with accidental insurance, if you have certain risk mitigation practices in place, sometimes your premiums can go down. Do you guys have any processes like that for risk mitigation or risk management that can help decrease cost at the end of the day for these certain plans?
Yeah, so individual insureds, like, it's funny because we do a lot of amateur sports throughout the country, and a lot of them have different events. We were at USA Softball; they have obviously championship tournaments that are internationally and within the U.S. And I always say, like, they always have an EMS on site, but I'm like, man, if you had an athletic trainer sitting there, or multiple athletic trainers sitting there, you would be such a better risk from an insurance standpoint. And not just USA Softball, but it's all organizations that if they integrate this, it could be a premium savings for you. And honestly, for the cost, like, you're going back to ROI, for the return on investment that you're getting from an EMS versus an athletic trainer there that could actually tell you exactly what's going on, and you have EMRs and you have emergency action plans, like, if all that's documented, you're a better risk as an
Mm-hmm.
insurance company at the end of the day. So like I would go with that rather than go with like an EMS on the sideline, because usually it's really hard to dictate, and they're always like, let's just take this individual to the hospital rather than actually saying what is wrong with this individual.
Yeah.
Like what is actually the underlying cause, and athletic trainers could do that in real time, whereas EMS would rather evaluate back at a hospital,
Yeah.
and that's usually their first road rather than actually diagnosing what's going on at that exact second. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a triage immediate and not actually thinking about what the underlying cause is.
Yeah. Uh, and then we had talked a little bit about documentation, doing that in real time, which is the biggest headache for athletic trainers because we're actively watching an event and
Yep.
trying to make sure we're documenting all the details. And then some of the details we have to wait on to hear back. Do you have any tips or tricks on how to better document, or what is an insurance company looking for when they're getting documentation on an injury or an event, incident, any of that type of stuff?
Yeah, great question. I think for the most part, what I'm interested in is that you have a way of documenting this, because as you said, and rightfully so, you're watching the play, you're watching what's going on at the end of the day, and you have to kind of also be looking at the individual, kind of saying like, what am I seeing here? But you're also documenting it or writing it up, and you have like you just need a really good system, and there are a lot of really good systems out there. For EMRs that are digital, that you could do from your phone, that you could do from like an iPad. There's a lot of systems out there, but in athletic trainers that are utilizing those, like I know Gopher has a really good EMR system,
Mm-hmm.
and I treat that as a value add to me. For if I know for a fact that they're integrating into some of my insureds, at the end of the day, I love that because I know I'm going to get real accurate information from an athletic trainer, not from a coach. Like getting medical information from me on the side of my son's baseball game is not going to be as beneficial as having an athletic trainer be able to tell you exactly what is going on at that time. So I think documenting in the reporting system that you have, like that's really, really important. And sometimes they're costly. They are like, it's just about partnering up with somebody that is actually providing that, and how you can grow your client base. And if you could do that, it's kind of a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Uh, so we kind of started talking about professional liability, general liability coverage. And then what's the third one? Or was
Uh,
that the other two?
it's those two for athletic trainers. I would say some of the other ones they would do is athletic train or A&H which is more like your routine injuries that you have as an athlete, but that doesn't necessarily affect athletic trainers. But PL and GL are really the focus.
Okay. And I'm just trying to break it down for everybody. You were kind of talking about the cost coverage, so 1 million, 3 million, those types of things. Can you explain that in lay terms so that people actually know
Yeah.
what they're trying to get covered?
Yeah, so basically you have an occurrence. There's an occurrence and there's an aggregate. And occurrence is basically if something happens, it's that one-time deal, but you have an aggregate limit, which is the total that you could do in a policy period, which is typically an annual period. So one incident with one individual can have a max loss of 1 million, but throughout that annual term, if you have like a 1 mil occurrence and a 3 mil aggregate, you could have up to a 3 mil aggregation between
Okay.
multiple claimants. So
And
that's the real difference there.
okay. And then what actually does that money cover at the end of the day?
Well, it depends. So if you're talking about professional liability, that's going to be like your malpractice, your basically services that you provided, the evaluation, the treatment, the return to play guidance, rehab recommendations, whatever you may be actually doing. That's covered under that professional liability. The general liability is going to be those slip and falls with somebody at your booth, someone trips over a table, as I mentioned, an incident at an event that you're supporting, like anything that involves like just somebody doing something that could be perceived as negligence on you. So like I said,
Okay.
if you have an object in the middle of a walking path and it's low enough that somebody doesn't see it, that's technically on you.
Yeah.
And it's not on the event at the end of the day. The event, like, hey, they have their own professional liability and general liability insurance. So that's the key when I keep on saying professional and general liability. A lot of athletic trainers don't have the general liability side. They have the professional. It's always like
Mhm.
one of those things when you go through and you're renewing your insurance at the end of the day, it's like, oh, here's your professional liability. They think they're covered. But there's always like usually a fine print. Hey, if you want general liability, click on this. And it's an additional $150.
Yeah.
I think that those should just go hand in hand, to be perfectly honest, because you're basically leaving one side of your exposure completely bare. And at the end of the day, if you get sued, you're paying that out of pocket because it's not going to be covered. Like that slip and fall that I mentioned is not covered under your professional policy.
Yeah. So if an incident was to come up, basically the money from the insurance goes to the lawyers or payouts or
Yes,
settlements and all that type of stuff,
it's the
correct?
settlement, it's the defense cost. That's why I say you have somebody in your corner from a defense perspective that's
Hmm.
looking out for your interest, not necessarily the interests of the event coordinator, the college, your employer. It's
Okay,
actually there for you.
gotcha. And then if an incident did happen and the insurance had to be used, do you guys give any guidance on possibly attorneys or lawyers or anything, or is that on the athletic trainer to find?
No, well, I can't say every insurance product is created equally, but under our policy, yes, we will provide you attorneys, and we deal with a laundry list of attorneys all across the country that specialize in this type of work. So we
Okay.
will be able to provide you attorneys, and obviously, it's all paid for us by the end of the day. And we what actually it helps the insured because the insured or the athletic trainer, they don't have to do the research of what attorney is the best, and we already have negotiated rates, so you're not paying or overpaying for an attorney just because you don't know what the average rate is. These are negotiated rates. So all of that is done for you. And basically, you submit the claim and then we take it from there. There could be back and forth saying, hey, what did you have? What was going on this day? And get back information. But at the end of the day, it's for their benefit. We're working on their behalf.
Gotcha. So random, but have you seen anybody actually use all three occurrences on their plan? I guess that's the average for a
I'm
year.
gonna knock on wood that no, I have not. I will say that when I did do professional liability, not just for athletic trainers, on the athletic trainers, I've never seen it. On plastic surgery, plastic surgeons and stuff like that, yes, I have seen those aggregate limits be utilized. But honestly, I've never seen it on the athletic trainer side because honestly, their entire job is to make sure that the person can get back on that field to court the ice in the best way possible, or to advise don't do that.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked a little bit about risk management strategies. Um, do you guys provide any educational materials of what athletic trainers could be doing to put them at better risk or to lower their risk of malpractice or incidences like this, or just
Yeah.
understanding their plans a little bit more robustly?
Yeah, so obviously we have a partnership with Go For It, and actually what we're trying to do in this year in particular, is to actually provide a lot of those educational content and meeting with individuals like you that are there and giving a voice to athletic trainers, which I think is desperately needed to make sure this is not your day to day activity. Insurance is not what you guys do. Like
Hmm.
we want you to concentrate on what you have to do, and we'll try to give you the tools in order to do it. So you will see through the partnership that we have with Go For It, you'll see a lot more stuff coming out that we hope gets out into the market. Obviously, I'm also a part of other committees like SIRMA, which is the Sports and Entertainment Risk Management Association, which again is trying to bring more light to some of these issues that are happening daily, and nobody really pays attention to it. But as an athletic trainer, either working for somebody or working for yourself, it can be a very lonely road when something does happen.
Yeah. So in athletic training, we're not unique to it, but there's obviously differences in region or state regulations and all that. Are there any differences for insurance coverage that we should be aware of for different states and all that? I know like California doesn't have licensing, so does that technically increase the cost of their coverage?
Yeah, yeah, state rules. It's a great question. So yes, state rules can differ. But the bigger issue is licensure and scope of what you're doing. And if you're traveling from event to events and it crosses those state lines, that's
Mhm.
usually where a lot of the stuff comes up. That like, if you tell me, I can make sure you're properly insured. But like, you don't think about it. You're like, well, it's only 5 minutes away from my house, but it's in another state because I'm right on the border. But you're not thinking about that when you're just going out to your job. But if I'm saying you're in New Jersey and then you decide to go to an event in New York, like that's where you're going to get into trouble because
Mhm.
then you have to worry about that going across those state boundaries. That is more of a jurisdictional. And as long as it's covered in your coverage, you're good. But most likely, it's not because you haven't dictated that to your insurance company. Like, hey, I'm in these 3 states. Tell
Yeah.
me ahead of time. We just put that in there. That's fine. You have a home state. These are the other 2 states that you go to. But that's stuff that needs to be disclosed ahead of time. Like our policy doesn't limit it by state. However, a lot of policies do. Whatever
Mm.
state you got your insurance from, and you gave us a license saying that you're licensed in that state, that's the only state that you're allowed to practice underneath that insurance policy. So again,
Gotcha.
a pitfall of insurance, but it's something just to be mindful of.
Yeah. Well, that's with the Interstate Compact coming up probably in 2027. It's going to be great for athletic trainers for job opportunities, but these are the little caveats that I don't think we realize is, yeah, you're going to be able to cross the state line and practice, but me being in Philadelphia, we couldn't dry needle, but if you go over to New Jersey, you can dry needle. So
Yeah.
that's an increase in liability at that point because you're breaking the skin. So I think that's where the misconceptions come from is insurance is going to cover me no matter what.
Yeah. And you know what? From a defense standpoint, most of the time you're covered from a defense. But if you're found liable for anything that you do, like you brought up dry needling, if you're found liable for that, there may not be liability coverage, but there's defense coverage for you. So they'll
Mhm.
pay the defense. And then all of a sudden we settle at 750K, and then the insurance company goes away because they're like, oh, we gave you your settlement. That's on you now. You're not covered under liability. So it's like doing one half of the job. I'd say the good rule of thumb that I try to get out there is don't assume that because you're just covering an event, it's automatically treated the same everywhere you are. So always ask. And like, it's funny, I get inundated with questions and they actually come to me because I don't know why I'm the point of contact, but I am. And they come to me. I'm like, you know what? I'm glad you're asking the question. And I'm surprised it doesn't come up more. So that's where we actually come up with like our frequently asked questions because we want to make sure that you actually know what you're covering or what we're covering for you.
Yeah. Well, and I was doing scheduling for jujitsu events, and I feel
Mm.
that combat sports, you're going to need a little bit more coverage because there's a lot of trauma that's happening compared to
Mhm.
maybe pickleball. Even though pickleball is really dangerous at the end of the day, still haven't figured that one out. But so I guess that's one thing that comes up with per diem is you enter a company and you're basically going to cover whatever events they have that you're comfortable with doing.
Yep.
I guess is there an all-encompassing plan? I mean, it's going to be a little bit more expensive at the end of the day, probably, but like, do you guys have any premium plans that kind of cover everything that we may come across?
Yeah, so there's nuancy when it comes to like dry needling just because of the fact that like we kind of brought up like the state jurisdictions.
Yeah.
But for the most part, a policy should cover everything you're doing as an athletic trainer at the end of the day. Now, I think what changes is what I define as an athletic trainer and what another athletic trainer defines as their job could be totally and utterly different. So I always just say like make sure you know what you're covering, and usually in every insurance thing, it's like what is being covered.
Mhm.
And then just make sure that it's what you do. Like if you don't see dry needling on there, bring it up. Be like,
Yeah.
hey, is this coverage? But like the insurance company may say, no, we don't necessarily want to get into this. That won't be covered under this policy. It's going to be very hard pressed to find another policy that's just going to cover that little bit of your exposure. But then at the end of the day, even if you find one that's going to cover something that most insurance companies don't want to cover, the cost may be too high to actually for the amount that you're actually going to get from that or the return. Get back to that return on investment for the individual AT. Like if you only have a few clients that you're doing something with, is it worth paying that additional premium to get it covered?
Yeah.
And that's something that goes down to the individual AT, what their area of expertise is, and who their clientele is.
Yeah. Well, you guys seem very much more involved in creating plans, to be honest. So my thought is, so with the dry needling, I don't know if you guys babysit or hold hands. It sounds like you do very good at interviewing to make sure you have a personalized plan. But do you guys also ask for like certifications for dry needling if somebody wants to add that to the plan? Like, how do you check out and make sure that, oh yeah, they know how to dry needle, but they've never actually taken a class before to help protect your company at the end of the day, because you guys are the ones holding the most risk of us all.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because a lot of people think like, oh yeah, I got certified by this, but I mean, in some cases, you could get a certification. What is that certification actually covering? And is it in person? Are you actually doing it live? Or are you sitting on a video and then at the end of 3 hours, you're getting a certificate that says that you can do this?
Mm-hmm.
So certification processes, and I think having like a standard one across the board is really, really important. The problem is there really necessarily isn't one. Because I could tell you that I've received 17 different certifications for dry needling from all different companies.
Yeah.
And honestly, insurance companies don't have the time to research all 17 of these certificates to make sure that they're actually accurate or
Mm-hmm.
accurate. So it's easier for us to exclude that and say we're not going to cover that than actually cover it. I think what really needs to happen is more of like a certification
A
process.
standardization.
Yeah, and it just doesn't exist. And I wanted to. I really do. I really wanted to. But like I said, when you could go on, I mean, technically, I feel like I could become a pastor overnight as well. But it's not gonna necessarily mean that you want me doing your wedding. And I feel like it's the same way.
Well, and that's, I don't know. You seem very knowledgeable, obviously, but that's where I always have questions with the increase of scope that athletic trainers keep taking on, suturing IVs. I mean, even a CSCS certification has its own liabilities at the end of the day. So is it going to get harder for us to get adequate coverage from a health professional standpoint if we keep increasing the scope? I don't know how physicians and all them do it on how to get approved through insurance, but I think it's one of those things that we need to start asking a little bit more and be thoughtful when we're adding stuff in, or we need to team up with the insurance companies to figure out how to create better standards to make sure people are legitimately practicing in their scope or the skills that they've gone out and gotten.
Yeah, that's honestly, it is very hard from an insurance standpoint to cover everyone, and as you rightfully mentioned, yeah, the scope is increasing, and like I said, every definition is different, but under making sure that your insurance company actually knows what you're doing and what your
Yeah.
scope is really, really important, because you want to make sure you're covered. And it's funny because from an insurance company, it's always really hard to make something easy for everybody to understand. Like you mentioned, hey, can you put this in layman terms? It's very hard to put in a automated process in layman terms, but also be totally comprehensive of everything without somebody saying, okay, I had enough of this. I'm going to go back to my old carrier that asked me 4 questions and I had insurance.
Yeah.
So it's a delicate balance, but I will say over communicating with your insurance company is always better to make sure you actually know what you're being covered. Because I would say from my standpoint, I don't want anybody to get insurance through Players Health and they don't know exactly what's being covered. I want it to be very transparent, very open, that openness happens 2 ways. Like I could tell you what I'm covering, but if you don't tell me what you're doing, I can't help you.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's a delicate balance, because I always get athletic trainers saying like, how can I get insurance the easiest and obviously financially the cheapest? And I'm like, okay, easiest and cheapest, it's hard, but I was like, it's also take the next step, adequate for what you do. So it's
Mm-hmm.
always that it's 3 combined, and I feel like we try to create a little bucket to make sure that you're getting the coverage that you need or the adequate coverage. But if something is totally outside, and maybe you don't think it's outside of scope for an athletic trainer, but if you're questioning it, ask the question.
Yeah. So you guys obviously are taking in a lot of information as an insurance company. Are you using that data to create any information or education or making coverage better at the end of the day?
Yeah, actually, yes, not so much on the athletic trainer front,
Mm-hmm.
but it's on our company as a whole. We actually do take a lot of our data, and I'll just quickly go into kind of what Players Health is doing differently in the market than other individuals. So we have a new co-bind issue platform that's launching in the next couple weeks. But when I said that what Players Health mission is, our mission is to create the safest and most accessible environments for athletes to play the sports that they love. Now
Mm-hmm.
we're actually doing it in real time. So an insured or a broker could go into our portal, enter all the insured's information, and then subsequently they get an athlete safety score or a safety score, risk management score. And I always equate this to like a credit score. Basically, you're doing well, you got some things that you need to improve on. But what we do is we give visibility with the athlete safety score. Then we give you mitigation and risk mitigation tools to manage that. And then on the backside, we transfer the risk via insurance. So it's like those three working in parallel. So in our new system, we give you that visibility to the insured real time, but then we actually give you a mitigation tool to increase that risk management score. So if you were at a 60, now how do we get you up to an 80? But again, this is the problem. You got to change that mindset. So how do we actually get somebody to do more than what they're currently doing on athlete safety? Back to the problem that Players Health had 10 years ago. Well, we incentivize them financially because honestly, at the end of the day, if I could save some money, I'm probably going to do it. So what we do is if you actually raise that athlete safety score from a 60 to 80, we're going to provide credits back to you in the form of premium credits that your premium is going to drop based off of the integration. And we're in getting back to the data is we're taking all of that data in and we're saying, does integrating this athlete safety make you better risk? And the answer is yes. So that's the reason why we're investing in it, and we're trying to change the behavior of the insured at the end of the day. So whether that's through an athletic trainer, whether it's our NIL partnership with college, or at the college level, or fitness facilities, it's all about changing the behavior to make sure that we're better risk. Because honestly, if you put me in from an insurance standpoint, I want to make sure that I'm in a defensible position for you. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, I'm going to pay out a claim one way or another. But if you put me in a situation that I could be a benefit and an asset to you because you're doing things and documenting things properly, and like I said, it goes to ATs as well, that's going to help me defend you. And honestly, that's why I'm here. So give me the tools in order to do so, or help us give you the tools in order to do so. And that's what we're doing differently at Players Health. We're not just like your typical insurance company. Because trust me, I came from the big insurance companies. I worked for Chubb. I worked for Aon. I did that whole thing. But honestly, at the end of the day, Players Health is just doing things differently and trying to get back to the actual mission, which is one thing that I actually really like. And this is I would say when we started the insurance side of it, it was like keeping the lights on, make sure we actually are sustainable so we can provide these risk mitigation tools to people at no cost to them. But now we're actually being able to implement it. So it's really, really cool to see.
Cool. Yeah. Sounds like almost a credit score at the end of the day of what are
It
you
is.
doing to
I
make
mean,
it nice and healthy and
credit score doesn't sound good. It's like, oh, I don't
no.
know. I don't know. I want to give them a credit score. But it's the closest thing that I could always attribute it to. But the risk management score is really just, it's not saying you're doing anything bad. It's just saying, hey, these are the things you could do to improve.
Yeah. So with that from the athletic trainer side, you guys are still kind of developing it. Would you guys partner with continuing education on like risk mitigation stuff and
Yeah, absolutely.
do an evaluation and be like, these are some of your weaknesses. If you can go address these in some sort of seminar or something. It kind of sounds like the Pathfinder that the BOC is doing, but if you
Yeah.
guys do it for your company, that would be a cool partnership at the end of the day to be able to double
And
dip.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's getting involved in more of the organizations because I think, like I know Go For It is getting involved in all these different organizations and they're getting athletic trainers more involved. But I feel like we're missing like that one connection point. Like I have a lot of national governing bodies. I have a lot of insurance that may have EMS at their events. Why can't we change that to athletic trainers and give them more visibility? And part of our training is also telling them the benefit of having athletic trainers versus, and I'm not saying anything against EMS. I think that it's something that has been widely utilized within amateur sports in particular, but having an athletic trainer there, in my opinion, from an insurance standpoint, is so much more granular information and such a better tool from a risk management perspective, because that is the best risk management tool that you could have at an event. Like, this is a person that is trained to tell you exactly what is going on and document it. Like, it just makes sense. And from an insurance standpoint, I know when an incident happens and it's HIPAA compliant, I know that it's accurate, and then I can at least have something to sink my teeth into rather than just getting a claim 2 weeks after the fact from a coach that forgot to submit it. And then I don't really have any facts of what happened at that game. Like, where are the parents? Where are the coaches? Where's anybody that viewed what happened? Like, and we've already lost that because it's 2 weeks ago. Everybody's already moved on. We've already had 14 practices since then. So again, I think having that person boots on the ground is kind of where we need to do. And that's what I'm working with organizations, that we have the organizations already having these events. We just need to educate them on the benefit of an AT rather than an alternative, or no alternative, or not having EMS or an athletic trainer, which still happens, which also boggles my mind.
Yeah.
So again, pushing back on that risk management aspect of it.
Yeah. And I mean, yes, EMS is so important to be there, but they just have such different responsibilities. They're more reactive and transport, and they're not looking to continue the athlete to play safe. It's kind of a one and done, where athletic trainers, can differentiate. Yeah, it's not safe for you to return. Yes, you can return. And, that's what we're trained in at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's where, like I said, athletic trainers, I feel like, live the mission of players' health on a daily basis when they go to these events.
I mean, the mission kind of lined up nicely with what an athletic trainer is. So, so let's see. Obviously, every insurance company is going to be different, but can you provide some of the average policy costs for an athletic trainer to get individually covered? I mean, I'd say that the average I've seen is around $200-ish, $250.
Yep.
Obviously, it depends on how personalized it is, because that's going to provide you the most protection. But what can athletic trainers deem normal when they're looking at general coverage?
Yeah, so I did this in preparation for meeting with you, because I wanted to see, because it sounds like I sit there and look at my competitors on a daily basis. But I was like, let me just go and start playing around. So I won't list any names, but I went on 3 different competitors, and the premiums are all over the place. Like, it used to be like that 200, 250. If this is your full time and you're not covered by an employer, it was like 450. But the one that I had today didn't ask me whether I was covered by my employer. It asked me how many hours I work, whether it's over 24. And my premium for not working over 24 was $550. And I'm like, and that's just professional. That's not even general liability was another 150. And then I had another one that was around like 250, 200, 250, but didn't include general liability. And you could add it on, but you had to talk to somebody in order to do it. That's where I say it goes back to ease of getting the coverage and the cost, and also what you're actually covering. So it's kind of out there as right around that 250 kind of range. And if this is like what you do, then it's slightly higher. As like your full time, obviously, it's usually around that 450 to 500 range. But again, it's all over the place. And most of the time, they don't give you the distinction and tell you the difference between professional versus general liability, and what claims are covered and what claims aren't covered. So again, it's not saying that anybody's doing anything as a bait and switch. I just think that it's one of those things that everybody's been so ingrained that they just need professional, but they're leaving off a huge exposure for them that honestly, at the end of the day, they're going to have to pay out of pocket. Which is, it's sad. Like, that's the reason why you have insurance. And for an additional cost, like our GL and PL are all built in. So like, we don't separate the two. It's actually a general liability policy rather than a professional liability policy, but we cover professional under our general liability. We sell it to individuals. So it's just a different way of looking at things, but it provides them the adequate coverage that they need.
Gotcha. So we kind of talked about it a little bit, but I don't know if we got directly to it. So like California, who doesn't have licensure, how much risk is added because they're not licensed?
Yeah. So great. Because technically I could go to California right now and I could do it, and I have no training whatsoever. So yes, and that's the reason why like we personally will not actually insure in California because of that reason. Under our policy, and it's like I want to create a policy. It's just that if there's very similar to like dry needling and some other things, it is, if you don't have a certification, you actually haven't gone through that process, then you probably shouldn't be doing that, to be perfectly honest. And from an insurance standpoint, I don't want to cover it because I do believe athletic trainers serve a very, very big need, and they put a lot of time and effort into their jobs, and I think that they need the insurance to cover them. But if you don't have it, I don't necessarily want to cover you.
Yeah. And then I've also heard that you're not a speaker for NATA at all, but I've heard that if you're not a member of the professional organization, that can put you at risk if an issue or instance does happen. Do you guys ask for professional memberships? Or, I mean, the state license you have to practice, but
Yep.
The NATA seems to be up in the air of, we see people talk about importance just from a day-to-day life, but from healthcare professional standpoint, does it affect your coverage from an insurance standpoint?
So from an insurance standpoint, no, I don't necessarily care about the affiliations. I just want to make sure that you actually are licensed to do what you say you do, and that you're properly equipped to do it. So no, for our policy, it does not necessarily take that into consideration. But I know that a lot of other organizations and insurance carriers do put that as a requirement.
Okay. Because it was the litigation portion of if you were sued for malpractice or any of that type of stuff, having that membership sometimes shows that you're competent because you are supposedly involved and understanding the scope and the standards and all that stuff. Have you heard anything to that account at all, or?
I have. I know that organizations that I was part of in the past, they did value that. However, at the end of the day, if you're getting into a courtroom, it doesn't necessarily. It's not gonna be the make or break. At the end of the day, it's like a waiver.
Okay.
All waivers aren't created the same. It's a great to have. Like I said, it provides me with more defense on your behalf. So I always say that it's valid. But honestly, at the end of the day, I'm going to put up a defense no matter if you have it or not.
Yeah.
From a pricing standpoint, I will say that certain organizations do offer credits or accommodation for that, because it does put us in a better defensibility. But I think at the end of the day, I want to make sure that our insurance policy, and I can't speak for everybody else, that it's open to every individual. And obviously, I want you guys to be a part of these organizations. But honestly, at the end of the day, it is window dressing when I get into a courtroom.
Gotcha. So looking at the future, where is liability insurance evolving? And with athletic trainers moving into more entrepreneurial roles or even newer settings, what are you seeing in the evolution of coverage?
I would say, well, obviously the inclusion, I will say that I didn't come up with it, but I think the inclusion of general liability and the importance in getting that out there is definitely a big change, because it was just professional liability. You checked a box in order to provide a certificate of insurance to an organization that you're there for. But now it's actually, it's opening up individuals to actually take on more, and giving them, especially an athletic trainer, giving athletic trainers the ability to actually get more individuals or get more deals done, because of the fact that like insurance shouldn't be your hindrance why you shouldn't be able to show up to an event. Like, we should make that easier for you. I can tell you, insurance as a whole hasn't necessarily made anything easier for anyone. However, what is changing is that is changing. Like, we need to change with the modern times. And that's where I say like the inclusion of general liability and your professional liability. Also, like I could tell you that there's a lot of insurance executives that wouldn't come on to talk about athletic trainers because they think of it as such a small segment of the overall, like what we're actually going after, which is amateur sports, fitness, NIL. However, there's such a key pivotal part. And I think that that just needs to be recognized. And I think it's slowly starting to change. And all we could do is just keep on being cheerleaders for it.
Yeah. And then NIL again. Does it really change anything in the insurance other than you just need probably more robust coverage? Or do you think that liability is going to become more day to day at the end of the day?
Yes, higher coverages probably. But now collegiate athletes before, you may have had a lawsuit for potential future earnings, but now it's not potential, it's current earnings. So like now athletic trainers are up to more scrutiny because like their decisions could now affect an individual's payday on an annual or a future. So yes, it has changed. The exposure has changed. I'm not saying back in the day when that college athletes weren't getting paid, but at least they can never sue you for their current earnings. But now it's real money.
Yeah.
And now they can. Like, let's say you make a decision to have them go back on the court, the field, the ice, and then something happens. They could potentially come back and say, "You told me to go back out there. You said I was good. You said I was cleared." Um, and that could now creep back in. So I think it's just about visibility at the end of the day, and just making sure that if you're going to go into it, make sure you have the appropriate limits because those deals are only getting bigger; they're not getting smaller. NIL is not going away. If anything, it's going to get bigger.
Yeah. So a quick pick section. If every athletic trainer could do one thing tomorrow to lower their risk exposure, what would it be?
Uh,
Get liability or get insurance coverage?
yeah, I mean, standardize your documentation, get general liability insurance, make sure you're communicating with your insurance carrier. I mean, like I said, everybody thinks that the premium's too low. Like, I don't want to talk to an athletic trainer. I value that conversation. So standardize your documentation, your communication. Um, Make sure that you have consistent handoffs when like you leave that event to make sure that everybody understands like what you did, what happened, and document.
That's not what I wanted to hear.
I know. I'm
Nobody
sorry.
wants to do
Sorry.
it.
Sorry. I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I say like a system is really important. And like there's like I said, there's a lot of systems out there to that are mobile enabled that you could do it. And honestly, you could get credits from your insurance company if you're utilizing these. So yes, it's a heartburn to dish out money, but there's also organizations that if you're a member of, you get access to.
Yep.
So look for those. Like I don't want to be go for is like they have their own marketing team, but I think that their platform is really good. And I do think that you teaming up with a good platform provider, and that's not just what they do, but if you have a good platform, it makes my job easier and it makes you a better risk to me at the end of the day. So I know it's a pain in the butt, but it's that pain in the butt that's going to protect you at the end of the day, and it's also going to protect your insurance company, which is going to protect your wallet at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So not what you guys want to hear, but sorry, that's the insurance in me.
Yeah, we just need to get better at it. So, what else? What other parting words of knowledge do you have for this conversation?
You know what? I would just say athletic trainers are superheroes, and I think they just need to get more visibility, especially when we're talking about national governing body level and amateur sports as a whole, because that is something that is more needed now than ever. We're pushing youth athletes, professional athletes, collegiate athletes to all time highs, and pushing everybody to the beyond extreme. And athletic trainers are the ones that are on the front line. So that's what I will die on the soapbox saying that repeatedly.
Perfect. Well, going into National Athletic Training Month, I think that's the best send off we've had in a while.
There you go.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I learned a lot today, and definitely I have to look at when my policy's up so I can switch over, because I think the personalization is the hardest part that I've never experienced anyone asking me about, what do you need from your insurance? And I didn't know that insurance did that. I just like pushing the renewal button, but now
I know. See, it goes back to ease. It's a delicate balance, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, I appreciate your time. I appreciate learning about your company and what you guys are providing for athletic trainers, and actually know what an athletic trainer is. So, I'm hoping that more people contact you guys and learn more about how to better protect themselves. Because I think, as I'm still waiting for the, what is it? The Olympics, where they just let everybody take any enhancements as they want. I think that exists right now, but I'm sure it's going to be coming forward soon. So more risk with that, but will be much more fun to watch. So yeah. What's a good way to contact you, I guess, or just go through your guys' website?
Well, obviously go through playershealth.com. We're always here to help out in any way possible. Obviously, we have the partnership with Go4. So obviously reach out to them, and they could actually tell you exactly what I just told you, because it was an educational experiment for both of us.
Perfect.
But one I'm glad we did.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much. And whenever you guys want to come back on to talk about new initiatives, or even the data that you guys are creating for the credit score, even though we're not calling it that, but always want to keep pushing information out there so athletic trainers can be better informed.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That's it for today's episode of To The Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To The Bone podcast is a product of Daily LLC. It's hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.